A court-ordered investigation determined that Ye was in direct contact with a National University Defense Technology professor who was a colonel in the People's Liberation. Under the colonel's instructions, she had accessed U.S. military websites, researched U.S. military projects, and compiled information for the PLA on 2 U.S. scientists with expertise in robotics and computer science. And this is another of the very scary and massive projects undertaken by the CCP. In a previous video, I discussed how China was gathering data on U.S. citizens. This is one of the things they do. They gather data on scientists to see who might have information they need, and then using everything from the person's credit card information to browser history, phone conversations, travel records, and other information stolen in data hacks, assess if and how that person might be vulnerable to blackmail or bribery to hand over information or spy for China. On February 8, 2020, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo warned America's governors that China was gathering information on U.S. governors to see which could be exploited for economic and political influence. The AP reported that Secretary Pompeo had cautioned the governors to be wary of Chinese investment and influence, including through contacts with Chinese diplomats, students, and organizations. Axios reported that DC Think, a think tank based in Beijing in collaboration with Tsinghua University, had compiled and published the U.S. Governor's Report, dated June 22, 2019, rating U.S. governors and White House advisors on how friendly they are to Beijing. DNC Think is not a state-owned company and claims no direct affiliation with the government. However, all companies and people in China are obligated by the national security law and national intelligence law to help promote and further the policies of the CCP. Additionally, the think tank has stated publicly that it partners with the United Front Work Department, the Chinese Communist Party's political influence arm, among other organizations. Getting back to Yanqing Ye, the PLA lieutenant charged in espionage, FBI and court investigations uncovered WeChat conversations which revealed that Ye and the PLA officials from National University of Defense Technology were collaborating on a research paper about a risk assessment model designed to decipher data for military applications. Zhao Sanzheng, the other Chinese national charged with espionage, entered the U.S. in August 2018 to conduct cancer research center at Beth Israel Medical Center in Boston. It is alleged that on December 9, 2019, Zheng stole 21 vials of biological research and attempted to smuggle them out of the United States aboard a flight destined to China. Zhao Sanzheng was intercepted by federal officers at Logan Airport who discovered the vials inside one of his bags. These cases are part of the Department of Justice's China Initiative, which reflects the strategic priority of countering Chinese national security threats and reinforces the president's overall national security strategy. In addition to identifying and prosecuting those engaged in trade secret theft, hacking, and economic espionage, the initiative will increase efforts to protect our critical infrastructure against external threats, including foreign direct investment, supply chain threats, and the foreign agents seeking to influence the American public and policymakers without proper registration. I think it's kind of cool that the U.S. is one of the only countries in the world where it's okay to enter our country for the purpose of influencing our politicians or business leaders. However, you have to register. Just recently, President Trump required all state-owned media of the Chinese government to register in the United States. However, he did not ban that media, and this is part of our freedoms in the United States. Sometimes foreign governments, such as China's, find ways to exploit our freedoms, but those freedoms are there for our protection, just like the new laws are there for our protection. In May 2019, the FBI's Foreign Influence Task Force added a unit aimed at countering China's political influence in the United States. In an interview, the director of the unit said that China's influence campaign poses one of the greatest threats faced by both the U.S. and ultimately the world in decades. Unlike Russia, the Chinese play a long game. Rather than focusing on a particular election, they use their economic power to cultivate and coerce long-term relationships. The FBI said that China was looking for governments and companies in need of cash. They advised governors, mayors, and business leaders to be sure to be careful about where the funds come from, as the Chinese government often works through sponsored entities, making the connection less obvious. Today's takeaway: first, China is infiltrating the US and other countries in ways we never thought of before. They create databases on governments and companies, compile profiles, and decide who to approach and how in order to gain influence. Second, by offering huge endowments and grants, or by threatening to withhold support or cancel lucrative contracts, China convinces American universities, academics, and businesses into self-censorship and behaving in ways that are more advantageous for the CCP. And finally, China creates spies or coerces or blackmails people into spying, usually by giving them titles and huge salaries. This includes overseas Chinese, Chinese citizens abroad, and foreign and U.S. nationals. I'm Dr. Antonio Graceffo, and thank you for tuning in to China Economic Research. You can get my books at Amazon.com. I write about the Chinese economy and wrestling and martial arts around Asia. You can also follow me on Twitter. I tweet about the Chinese economy and the Mongolian economy. If you enjoyed the video, please click like and please subscribe to the channel. I'm Dr. Antonio Graceffo. See you next time on China Economic Research.